Okay, folks, so in the past two videos, I was just basically giving you a rundown of sociocultural evolution and my own studies, which focus on the relationship between technology and the society at large. Um, okay, so I gave one example of how technology influences the society it exists in, the printing press. And I said that during the Protestant Reformation was at least contingent upon the development and advent of the printing press, so that every citizen of the nations of Europe during the medieval ages had a Bible in their homes. And this sort of decentralization, pulling away from Catholic authority, was able to, in a sense, liberate a particular aspect of life, religion, and say every man is a priest. And these are not my words; these are Martin Luther's words. And this sort of thinking and this sort of example is exactly what I'm talking about. This happens repeatedly throughout history as more and more technology is invented and influences the process of decentralization over history. Two things, two observations, at least in my studies. One, that technology influences society, and two, that in our history at least, a general trend has always been towards decentralization. And it may not seem like that. It may seem like we've been centralizing more and more authority. But really, as things have been getting bigger, we've had to adapt some mediums of centralization. Not that top-down structure authorities haven't existed in beyond monarchies and kings and papal authorities. Of course, that those have existed. But let me give you an example. A bureaucratic state is actually the same structure as a monarchy. It has the president and the president's subjects, and once again, a top-down, layered hierarchy of authority and of commands, under a different philosophy, perhaps, at a time where enough knowledge and information and philosophy and a rekindling of ancient value systems mixed with mathematics and rationality. Once again, technology influencing the way people think, and then thoughts influencing technology. This sort of process has been going on in Europe and in Asia and across the globe since time immemorial. So my second primary example would be the advent of the radio, or the telegram, or the telephone. These sort of audio transmissions were able to make things much easier. Now suddenly I didn't have to just write something to you, or now suddenly I didn't have to have everything that I say written down and then mailed to thousands of people in order for them to hear it. It was either that, or you had to be in the direct vicinity of me, whether I was a public speaker or not, in order to hear what I was saying or read my books. Now we could condense our language and our communication into sound bits and sound bites, and this actually made it much easier to communicate and broadcast to the world, and to sort of bring the world a little bit closer together, at least where this technology existed. And this really helped the process of modernization a lot. Not only this, there are a few other inventions, of course. Modern forms of energy, and by modern, I hate to call them modern because I really find them more archaic, but coal and oil, etc. These forms of energy helped us sort of bridge the gap between land masses much easier, much quicker. It helped transfer resources, and so on and so forth. These mix of inventions and these quote-unquote, and I know this is a very taboo term in sociology, progress, but let's use progress very lightly here. What we mean by progress is really adaptation to the environment. This is another major term in sociocultural evolution, adaptation to the environment. So That's my second example. The radio. Great way to broadcast information. It changed the way people think to some degree. It basically enhanced the direction we were already going, which was more and more and more communication. And to some extent, it helped. It helped a lot. I mean, I can't really think of as concrete examples as the Protestant Reformation, but if you look at the past century, especially the turn of the century, um, what's his name? What's his name? Sorry, FDR's was it FDR's inaugural address? That might have been television. Well, anyway, the fireside chats during the Great Depression in the United States were broadcast by radio. For the first time in history, uh, people were sitting down, weekly or however periodically he did it, and listening to their president at the dinner table or in the living room or by the fire, and these sort of things were completely new. Another example, third example, television. Another way to communicate, another way to transmit information, even less centralized. Now, even more people got to not only hear things, but see things. And as technology became easier, more and more people were contributing to the seeing, the giving of sight, the giving of media, visual media and audio media. By the way, radio became massive. And at some point, radio was seeing television as a challenge to its authority. As a challenge to, they're saying, oh, TV's gonna be a menace, blah, blah, blah. They're stealing viewers, etc., or it's not gonna work, etc., things like that. And it did. It took over. It completely encompassed what radio did and more. So television. And a primary example in television would be the debate between Kennedy and Nixon. This debate actually was, I think, one of the first presidential debates in U.S. history to be televised. And because of that, interestingly enough, the people who listened to it on radio, because there are plenty of people who listen to the radio still, thought Nixon won. The people who saw it on the television thought Kennedy won. And the reason why is because Kennedy was not feeling sick that day, and Nixon was. Nixon was sweating, he was feeling nervous, he had sweat on his upper lip, and he just looked less presidential than Kennedy did, who seemed very firm posture, very in control, and because of that, the election was influenced. So these are just little examples of how communication through media has enhanced and altered the way we think and interact. Now, I think the most significant aspect of this is that each new invention seems to do what the prior one did and then some. TV did what the radio did. Radio did what letters could do, but better. Radio did what sound bites can do and telegrams can do, but better. So basically, we have this way to broadcast ourselves and to communicate and to connect. And the whole other aspect, of course, is technological engineering, new energy usage. That's another aspect. But I've mainly been focusing on communication up till now because I think it's the easiest to start with. So we've had these new forms of communicating. The newest form, which I believe started in the 70s, the internet. Now, this is another form of communication, which originally was just a way to sort of virtualize telegrams, letters, information exchanged between bases. So, one military base could share a database and communicate with each other and send files, etc., etc., in a decentralized, open sort of way. And also, it also began a particular attitude of collaboration between people in an organization, between people who are spaced out between long distances, now centralized in this focal point called a computer. And this computer we all can share and collaborate and do projects on. And open source was actually one of the earliest philosophies that it came with the advent of the internet and the popularization of the internet. And open source, of course, is an open, collaborative project where people share their information. They don't hold secrets. They all collaborate. They create something together. So the internet is example, I guess that's number 4, but that's the most important one. And I'll get to that in the next video. Thanks for listening.